Welcome back to the Pride of Detroit POD cast. I almost feel like we need a theme at some point for over-unders because we played it so much. It comes back every now and then. It's kind of like the Green Ranger or the Italian chef on the Japanese Iron Chef. Just appears randomly with massive fanfare. But this one is over-unders on reactions because even though the Lions didn't play this week, Lions fans kept playing their game of just screaming about everything. We tried to step back and we tried to at least calm ourselves. And I think that we were, however, Jeremy, for our efforts to try to find the middle ground again, we were immediately assaulted for that. And I had to endure some very awful takes. So we're going to address some of those takes right now. And this is where we turn the bullets back on you guys a little bit. But I think the first one we have for overreaction, underreaction here. Is this an overreaction by fans? Is this an underreaction? We'll get to a lot of those takes. The first one is, Jeremy, look how fast the New York Jets and the New York Giants turned things around. Don't tell me a rebuild needs more years than this. Look how quickly those teams were able to get they're up and running. They're doing good. They're playing good football right now, right? Right? Well, got Brian Dable and Salah, and we should be doing like that.
Well, here, first of all, I think I was on this podcast right after the Patriots game saying like, why, like, I was in it, I was in my,
you were in it. You were admittedly, this was a Jeremy take in the moment. Yes.
And I was like, it's unfair. It sucks that we have to see these franchises do well. And to me, that was more of a, like, wouldn't it be nice to just at least have a moment in the sunshine, have a moment in the spotlight? And maybe the Lions have had that here and there, but not, I think, to this level in quite some time. But when we decided we were going to talk about this topic, I decided I wanted to do a lot of research on it because it's interesting. And I think when you say, like, you just look at a team like, oh, they changed their coaches 2 years ago. The Lions changed their coaches and GM 2 years ago. Like, they're equal situations. That's not how that works, first of all. You're inheriting different teams, you're inheriting different players, you're inheriting different contracts.
Brian Dable inherited Saquon Barkley, who's right now the best running back in the league.
Sure. But let me do a deep dive here. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to take the floor for a little bit here. So,
okay, you do that. I've got one sub take to annoy you afterwards. So sure. Go on.
Okay, so there's three parts to this. The first part is, are the Jets and Giants actually good? Because we're six games into the season, guys. It's not time to declare anything about any franchise about turning around like, okay, wow, the rebuild is done. The Giants and Jets are for real. Pump the brakes. Let's see. Let's wait and find out, because the Giants are 18th in DVOA. The Lions are 25th. To me, that's not that big of a difference. You're both below average teams. That middle of the pack teams is basically 80% of the teams in the NFL. It's just like they're okay. And I realize the Lions aren't necessarily there yet, but they're close. Jets are 15th. The Jets have beaten the Browns, Steelers, Dolphins with someone named Skylar Thompson. I don't know who that is. And to their credit, a good win against the Packers last week. They got
Skylar Thompson is one of the players that Brad Holmes should have drafted.
Oh, okay.
According to a lot of people. So.
Okay. They got boat raced. Is that the term? I don't know. Who cares?
Sure. By
the Ravens and the Bengals. So against actual good teams, they got schmurdered. Great. Giants, kind of a decent resume, but they've trailed in every single game. They've trailed by 2 scores in 3 of their 5 wins. That is not sustainable. They've just been performing well at the end of games. They're winning a bunch of 50-50 games, while a team like the Lions not winning their 50-50 games.
If I may, because I know you wrote a great article today about, and maybe we'll get into it a little bit later, about how the Lions, we all looked at the Lions' strength of schedule for the start of the season. We thought it was easy, and it's turned out it's not.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the first part of the Giants' schedule? Because these teams, this is not a resume that I would put in front of a recruiter right now of the teams the Giants have beat.
Yeah, tell me about their schedule.
So a 1-point win over the Tennessee Titans, which again trailed in that. The Panthers, we've now learned, are just completely rudderless. They lost to the Cowboys, who have a pulse. They beat the Bears, who I'm still trying to get a pulse for the Bears, but my pulse is that they're not good.
They're horrible.
They were an awful matchup for the Packers. The Packers have DVOA rates their run defense as one of the worst in the league in efficiency, and Saquon Barkley could just gash them. And so, yeah, they had to come from behind again, but they beat them in England. And then they beat the Ravens, who I guess that's kind of, I'm still trying to figure out who the Ravens are this year. I'm getting a lot of conflicting reports.
So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that maybe these guys' resumes aren't as impressive as they may look. And listen, you win games, you win games. You are what your record are. Sure. Go with all those platitudes and whatever. But we're talking about this team has turned the corner. They're good now. I'm not convinced that either team is good right now. I'm a little bit more convinced of the Jets, which leads me to my second point. How did they build their teams? Well, the Jets entered this offseason with the third most cap space. And you know what they did with it? They spent a shit ton of it. They signed Laken Tomlinson to a 3-year, $41 million deal. They signed CJ Uzoma, 3 years, $24 million. Tyler Conklin, 3 years, $24 million. Jacob Martin, 3 years, $15.5 million. DJ Reed, 3 years, $40 million. Jordan Whitehead, 2 years, $14.5 million. Lions can't do that. Lions couldn't do that. So how do you quickly turn your team around? Yeah, you add a bunch of really good guys in free agency. But here's the problem with that. That's not what the Lions want to do. It's not what they can do. It's none of those things. From the beginning, the Lions have said, we want to build this in a way for long-term success. We don't want to be a flash-in-the-pan team. We don't want to be a team that says, okay, how quickly can we turn this around and open that window for a couple years? They want to be a team that builds through youth in the coaching staff so that you have an ability to overturn rosters when you're coaching rosters, when your guys eventually get plucked. It's all about development in the system, and that takes time. That is not what the Jets are doing right now. The Giants, on the other hand, are. They have one of the youngest rosters too, just like the Lions do. They've made similar moves in the draft. They've gotten their edge guy in Thibodeau. They've gotten their offensive tackle in Evan Neal. They've tried to tackle their wide receiver situation with Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney. Now, both those haven't really worked out, and
they've had a lot of swing and misses before. Here's the thing for the Giants too. Dable inherited not a bad situation because, again, he had, I thought, an okay offensive line and a good run game. He had pieces to work with when he got to town. It wasn't a completely busted roster like Dan Campbell had.
To me,
guys, their quarterback is Daniel Jones. I think they deserve a little more credit.
Well,
no. I will give them that credit. Daniel Jones is the anchor. Yes. And Kadarius Toney might go down as one of the worst draft picks they've ever made, and Kenny Golladay goes down as one of the worst free agent signings since Albert Hainsworth.
Sure.
Alfred, yeah. So, granted, but that's not what people are seeing. They just see Brian Dable coming in with some pieces and just immediately launching.
My point is, the Giants are very much built like the Lions. They are. And in free agency, the strategy has been mostly the same. Yes, there was Kenny Golladay. Yes, there was Adoree Jackson. They spent a lot of money on, but mostly 1-year deals, develop young, a lot of draft picks. And I know the Jets had a lot of draft picks too, but they also completely spurged on free agency, and we'll see how that works 1 or 2 years down the line when those free agent deals don't look as nice as they maybe did in year one.
So you're saying this is a total overreaction?
I am. I'm not, Chris. I am not done. Giants, great at running the ball, horrible on defense, 30th in DVOA in defense. They are the exact same team the Detroit Lions are, except they play well in the fourth quarter. Period. That's it. They also have a ton of injuries. Not quite as much as the Lions. Jets, one of the healthiest teams in the NFL. So the Giants are overperforming. But the one thing I will say is, if they're performing in the fourth quarter, if they're pulling out all of these victories, it does point to one thing. They're being better coached. And that's where I'll concede. I think the Giants are, in terms of talent, in terms of how they're building, in terms of their future success, I think they're built a lot like the Lions, but right now they're being better coached. The Jets, I have a lot of questions about. I don't believe they're real. I think they are built more for short-term success. I think there are questions about their team building strategies. But I think, yes, this is all an overreaction to 6 weeks of the NFL because, listen, nothing is set in stone. We don't know anything about these teams. We like to think we do, but we won't for quite some time. And so everyone chill out. We don't, and that's just the other thing. Like, right? I want to go back to really the point that I think matters the most is like the Lions are trying to build long-term success. They're trying to be sustainable. They don't want to be a flash in the pan. They don't want 1 or 2 good seasons. And so how about before we claim, wow, the Jets and Giants are done with their rebuild, they fixed everything, let's see how they are 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. And I know I'm asking people, I'm asking Lions to do the one thing that they hate to do, which is wait and see, have patience. But I'm sorry, wait, see, have patience. Rebuilds take a while.
Yeah, I think the key is that where I will call it an overreaction is that it's only been 6 games. Records change a lot. I was talking like we don't have that many winning teams, and to be honest, like teams, even the best teams out there, even someone like the Philadelphia Eagles are on track usually by historical standards to end up going about 500 after this point in their season. Maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse. It depends who they play. It depends on injuries, a lot of things. I'm not going to say this is an overreaction, underreaction. Where I do jump off the bus is where I see people trying to approach me with the Lions should have drafted Sauce Gardner. Because Jeremy and I know you wrote the Lions should draft article on Sauce, but here's the thing. You know this as well as I do. You know exactly what this fan base would be doing if for 2 out of the last 3 years the Lions pick a cornerback in the top 5 of the draft. It would be piss screaming out of every orifice. That's what they would be doing. So everyone wants to once again have perfect hindsight saying they would take him, when I know for a fact they would have hated that. They would have screamed bloody murder if the Lions took a cornerback, even one as good as Sauce Gardner, at that position. That's all I ask for, is that I ask that you call out your own hypocrisy. That's all I'm asking for, because this is the most insincere belief I've seen Lions fans hold since I've seen some people say that they would have drafted Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa while Matthew Stafford was still on the roster. You're doing revisionist history. For the Jets and Giants, I'm happy for their success. That's all I've really got. I'm not going to say it's an overreaction or underreaction.
It's not only revisionist history, but it's an overreaction to 6 weeks of these guys' careers. Jesus, like, let's see how Aiden Hutchinson plays out. Let's see if Sauce Gardner can keep it up. Like, oh my God. How many times do we have to go through this with every rookie class?
Every year.
I think important about both those teams, though, that we've just been talking about at length, for the Jets and the Giants. The Jets are 14th in pass rush win rate. The Giants are not far behind at 16th in pass rush win rate. Do you know where the Lions are?
Probably 31st or 32nd.
31st. So you can look a little better in this. I'm not taking anything away from Sauce Gardner, but I'm saying, like,
it's getting a little help.
It's a little easier to play when you got some movement up front.